In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a double exposure effect using Photoshop. Step 1, after you have your photos, is to remove the background from the subject. So I'm going to use this photo here. It works best when you have a subject and then kind of a landscape to go with it. So I'm going to use these two photos. First, I'm going to lower the opacity on the one I'm going to blend it with and just kind of position it. I like the way the guy's hair splits at the same place that the mountain and the building. So I'm just going to do a test by lowering the opacity and moving it where I'm going to move it. All right, that's just an experiment. I'm going to duplicate layers. You don't always have to do this, but I like to make extra copies of my layers in case I mess anything up. I want to always have an unedited copy. All right, so I'm going to turn it off. I'm going to go to my background now, and I'm going to use layer, new layer, and I need to make a blank white background. So there's many ways to do that, but I'm going to go to select all, say edit, fill with white, say OK, and pull that one below my subject photo. Alright, now I'm ready to remove the background. Now I have everything set up, so I'm going to go and get the quick select tool. And I'm going to brush on the subject and get the selection. Sometimes Photoshop goes to minus instead of plus, so I'm going to go back up there on the brush and make sure it's on plus because I want to add to the selection, not take away. And on this photo, since there's not a lot of contrast, sometimes Photoshop selects things I don't want selected. So in that case, if that happens, you do Control Z to undo it. Keeps trying to select the whole thing, so I'm just going to do undo. And now I'm going to go back and get the minus and try to deselect the sides of this picture. So when you're using the select and mask, it's a lot of experiment, a trial and error. It gets things you don't want sometimes, but you just keep working with it and edit your selection. Alright, so that's pretty close, good enough for now, and I'm going to go into the select and mask mode to further edit it. Alright, go over here, and I like to choose the mode where I have the red background. So I go to overlay. That's how I like to work in here and have the color red. And if you change the opacity, you can kind of see what you have selected and what's left to select. So I kind of lower the opacity so I can see the edges of his hair. I'm going to get the very first tool, which is like the same tool that got me in here, and I'm going to finish getting some of the things that kind of messed up originally, which are the corners of his shirt. Alright, now I want to get his hair, so I need to go to the Refine Edge tool. That's the second tool. It's great for using hair. So just brush it along the very edge, and it'll knock out all those little tiny hairs. So just go around the edge only. Alright, that is pretty good. I'm not going to make a perfect selection just for this video. And I bump up the opacity just to see what I have selected to make sure it's good enough. Once I'm happy with that, I can say OK. Now I'm ready for step 2, the layer mask. So when I have this selected, I want to make a layer mask on it. So go up to Layer, Layer Mask, and Reveal Selection. That means I want to show the selection and hide everything else. So you can see it knocked out the background and shows that white background that's behind it. Now I want to load that selection again. So go to Select, Load Selection. This time go on your background layer that you're going to use and do the same thing while the subject is selected. Do the same thing. Reveal selection. And that way you can see that it's only showing your other photo inside the first photo. Alright, I want to go to the right hand side where the layer mask is. And now you can start painting on the layer mask. So remember, using black and white on the layer mask just changes the transparency of it. So I'm going to get a large soft brush, make sure hardness is on 0. And this is important, lower the opacity so that you're only painting very lightly. You're not doing anything too drastic. So I have black, and I'm going to paint black on a layer mask. When you paint black on a layer mask, it becomes transparent. So it's kind of like erasing. So I have the opacity low on the brush so that I can just do a little bit at a time and make a subtle effect. So I'm just painting a little bit of black on there so that it becomes transparent. So the great thing about layer masks, if you do too much, you can always go over there and switch the color to white and you can paint it back. Now if you start painting a lot and you go outside the lines, then you're going to lose the outside edge. So I'm not going to recommend that. Just undo that. And then I'm just going to go back in and put a little bit more white because I erased a little bit more than I wanted to. That's the great thing about layer masks. Nothing is permanent. You can just keep painting white and black on them to erase and put things back. So I'm going to go over here and I'm painting a little black on the bottom of that photo because I want it to just fade. I don't want to see that hard line there. Alright, so that's looking pretty good. I'm going to lower the opacity of it just a little bit. And now I'm going to try a different layer mode. Instead of normal, you can try different ones to see how it blends with the other layer below it. I think this one looks kind of cool. You don't have to do that step, but I would recommend trying it. Alright, step 4. Now we're going to work on the background. So I have this extra copy of the background. I'm going to pull it behind here and put it on top. Instead of having that white background, I'm going to use the same background. You can use a different photo if you want, or you can take the same photo and edit it. So I tried inverting it. Now I'm going to try using hue and saturation and just changing the color totally, or maybe darkening it. But like I said, you can use a completely different photo. You don't have to use the same photo. If you do use the same photo, I recommend doing what I'm doing though and really changing it a lot to give it a good effect. I'm going to saturate the top picture a little bit too, so it's brighter. Alright, I'm going to make a new layer and brush some black in those corners. I don't really like how that looks, so I'm just going to fade those corners to black. I just need to bump up the opacity and darken in those corners. Alright, step 5, adjustment layers. This is a step that you do not have to do, but I want to show you how to do it. It's a way to non-destructively change and experiment with the overall look that you have going. So you can go up to Layer and scroll down to Adjustment Layer, and I would recommend trying any of them, all of them, just to see what they do. You can have some really cool effects, and nothing is permanent. It becomes a layer, so it has all these different choices. You can try these gradients, different colors on top of it. So I would recommend experimenting with them and just seeing what they all do. The best way to learn things is just to experiment and try until it gets the effect that you want. I really should have this adjustment layer as the top layer, then it wouldn't leave those black spots on the bottom. So keep that in mind. Make sure your adjustment layer is your top layer. And if you want to reverse the gradient so it doesn't look inverted, you can do that. Alright, so that's one type of adjustment layer. I'm going to turn it off and just try some other ones. So I'm going to go back up here and choose another type of adjustment layer. I'll try the hue and saturation. So yeah, the cool thing about adjustment layers, you can do all these things on each layer if you want, but if you make an adjustment layer, it's non-destructive. And that's something that you do need to know for the certification test, is that adjustment layers are a non-destructive edit. It means you can do all these things to your photo and try stuff out and nothing is permanent. You can just turn the layer on and off if you don't want to keep it. So you don't have to be copying everything I'm doing. I'm just experimenting. I don't know what they all look like either because it looks different on every photo. So I just want you to see where they are, and I just want you to try some of them out. I'm going to make one more, and then I'll move on. I'm going to try some photo filters. Has a lot of presets that you can try. Alright, so that's it. You don't have to have any of these, but I do want you to try them out and see how they work. I'm going to leave mine on this saturation one, I think, the second one. Alright, now is a text effects. I use this to sign my name, but if you want to put some other type of text on here, this is kind of a cool effect you can try. So I'm going to use white to type my name. You can type another word, a title of this if you want. I'm just going to use my name for this purpose. You can use any color, but I'm going to end up changing it to black later so that it has an effect, you'll see. So I'm going to add a new layer, new layer. I'm going to put this layer below my text, and I'm going to change it to dissolve. Then I'm going to get a color. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use the paintbrush on the soft brush, and when the layer mode is on dissolve, what it does, it kind of looks splattery like it's a paint effect. So once again, this isn't something that you have to do on your assignment. I just want to show you because I know a lot of you like to learn other new tricks in Photoshop, so this is something else you can try. And then when I change it to black, it just looks like it's kind of stencil spray painted. Alright, and then the very last step I did in my art is cropping it and framing it. So I'm going to get the crop tool, and I'm just going to pull my file open a little bit more to the right so that my subject is centered more. So I open that up a little bit, and then I can press either the check mark or enter. And then I still have that little white area. I'm just going to get a black brush and fill that in. Alright, now I want to show you how you can make a frame on your art. I'm going to go to my background layer where it has that kind of brown building thing, and I'm going to get the rectangular marquee and drag a rectangle that's a little bit inside the edge of my image. And I'm going to go to select, inverse, so that I have just this frame area. Alright, and I want to change the color of that, so I'm just going to go to Control U and go to colorize and just experiment with some different colors to frame my picture. This is not a step that you have to do. Once again, I just want to show you how to do it in case you want to learn how to do some extra things to your art. I think I'm going to leave it on more of a complementary color like that. And now I'm going to make one more layer, and I'm just going to outline that frame. So I have that selected. I go to Edit, Stroke, and I'm going to pick an orange outline. I'm going to make the stroke on the outside so it only shows the one inside part of the frame. Alright, when you're done, save it as a PSD and a JPEG and put that JPEG in your portfolio.